Okay, hi, how's it going? Um, this lesson is on creating a good sound out of your guitar. And we're not going to talk about gear. With my new setup, there's not, I don't have any video editing software on my computer because the rig that I'm using now is specifically for recording. It's got my Pro Tools stuff, and that's it. It's the only thing I have on this computer, and then I have a webcam attached, so it's whatever came with the Mac. So, for instance, the sound that you're hearing with my voice is just straight into the webcam, and then on either side right here of my computer, I have my monitor speakers, and I'm running what I run for recording, which is the Fractal Axe-Fx 2, which is a great unit, and I am kind of a gear snob, so to speak. If you look in the background, you can see what the amps that I would typically play. I think I only have one set up right now, but it's matchless. So, and then my cabs and stuff, and like for instance, all my pedals are true bypass. Everything I have is kind of like boutique, and so I'm definitely a real, tube amp, hand wired, point to point kind of aficionado. But yet, when I record with the Axe-Fx. Anyway, there's something that I think is kind of a lost art as far as guitar playing goes, and that is getting a good sound. And I'm not talking about chops and being able to play lots of notes, or your technical ability, because ultimately, even though we'll talk about that a lot in these lessons, most of that again is irrelevant if you're not getting a good sound out of your guitar. It's much more important. So I've said it once, and I'll say it 1,000 more times. Doesn't matter how many notes you play if the notes you're playing do not sound good, right? If the notes sound bad, why would you want to play thousands of really bad sounding notes? Okay, but it doesn't really come from your gear, and manufacturers are not going to like this, but it comes from your hands and your ears. Now, the most important part is your ears. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit more about vibrato and how you're placing your fingers on the guitar to get a good sound. The way you attack the strings when you pick has a lot to do with it. So your picking hand, as well as the pressure and how you're moving your, and the contact that you're making with your hands on the guitar. Now, to play any single note, you want to make sure that you're contacting what I would call the sweet spot on your finger. Now, when you're playing chords, you probably have your fingers very, especially for open chords, very arched, and that's probably how you learned, because you have to clear strings underneath. But when we're playing single strings and lead lines, it's absolutely unnecessary. I mean, unless you need to clear other strings, I would advise that you don't. So if you can kind of take a look here, if I tilt the guitar, when my fingers come down, they don't come down extremely arched like this. They come down like this, and in fact, normally the tip of my finger will touch the adjacent string. So if you notice, I'm actually pressing the G string, but the tip of my finger is barely up against the D, and up underneath the backside of my index finger, I'm also engaging the B string. So neither of the adjacent strings, and that's what I'm plucking right now, will make a sound when I play my intended string, and that'll normally happen for just about everything that I play. So keeping the strings that you don't want to ring quiet is very important. That's accomplished with partially the left hand and partially the right hand. But the main thing is, and it's not complicated at all, but it's what I find most of my students forget to do, is they don't use their ears. So, I mean, if you've been taking lessons from me or looking at these videos, you notice that it's something that I continually harp on, and I will continue to harp on it, and that is to always use your ears. Don't be afraid to use your ears. A lot of people think that they can't do it. You can. You don't see music, you hear it. Okay? So obviously you need to know where to fret and where to put your fingers and how to move your fingers, but the single most important thing is your ears. So let's get into a little bit of bending and when you play single notes. Okay? Playing in tune is very important. So when you go to make a note, what you don't want to instantly do is bend out of tune like that. Now, I'm going to review the way to actually use vibrato. You want to, when possible, be using the muscles of your forearm in a torsion type motion versus going like this with your fingers. Okay, and I want you to pay attention to different players, and especially if you go on YouTube and you're watching videos, if you have somebody who has no engagement with these bones, the larger bones of their hand, what you're going to notice typically is kind of a weak sounding tone and a very kind of shaky vibrato where the pitch, either the vibrato is too fast or the pitch is inconsistent. Another problem of doing this is a lot of times your fingers will slip off because you're changing the angle and you get that probably one of the worst sounds ever, the worst mistake that you can make. So you don't want to do that. Okay, again, what we're doing is making contact in here with the bone that connects your index finger to your hand. In here, like this. Remember, once you have the guitar in your hands, you become part of the instrument. So the energy is transferred through the bones of your hand. It's very subtle and what someone called negligible, but it's all a bunch of little pieces adding up together. Okay? And the other thing you want to do is use your ears to make sure that you're in tune. So if I'm against a chord, is my note in tune? And then when I use vibrato, am I staying in tune or not? Or am I going sharp? Because that's your typical little bit sharp. And for any of you who know that lick, yes, I'm criticizing that guy. Most of the notes he plays are sharp. I won't mention any names. But there's a lot of guys who do it. It's not that big of a deal. I think what happens is, again, they're just not using their ears. It's something that's easily correctable. So what we want to do is use the muscles of your arm in a torsion type motion, twisting motion. It's a lot more solid. Another thing we want to do is play your vibrato in time. So for instance, if I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, then what you want to do is subdivide the beats into some even division of the beat. I mean, it can be quarters, eighths, eighth note triplets, 16th triplets. I mean, that's going to start sounding a little bit fast depending on the tempo of your song. But for instance, like triplets, so if I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, what I'm doing is my vibrato is actually in triplet time. Okay, or it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and you hear what's happening. I'm in time. Nothing really, unless, I mean, there are occasions we'll play out of time on purpose, or not really out of time, it's free time, but nothing really has an exception from the two rules that you have to be in tune and you have to be in time. That's what makes you sound good. Okay, so basically just using your ears. Another thing that you don't want to do, depending on how you're getting to a note, we talked about this before, is that if I'm bending up to a note, like say if I'm on this D and I'm going to go to E, a whole step higher, I mean, then I have a lot more options on how I can bend the note, because if that is my target note, and I go up to that note, then I can bend, hang on a second, I can bend that note then I can go around that. In other words, I can bend, continually go below the pitch and match pitch. I can go up, or I can go around the pitch. Another way of doing that is by the linear type vibrato, where I'm pushing this way. Okay? If you're watching guys that show you how to play scales like this, like for instance, example of a G major scale. I know you've seen that before. Shut off the video. Like, that's not somebody you want to be learning from. It's like, what is that? That's not a scale, that's a million notes. There's lots of notes in there, okay? If somebody's instructing you how to play a scale, they'll just play straight through it. If they're instructing you on vibrato, then it may sound something like this. Scales don't sound like this. I mean, that's normally somebody hiding something, that they don't have ears themselves. So we don't want to do that. Again, no offense to anybody, but seriously, if you're going to be learning from somebody, you need to learn from somebody who actually knows what they're talking about. Okay? So, index finger, if I'm playing with my third finger, but the main thing is that you're just conscious of what the sound sounds like. The sound sounds like. If you want a intense vibrato, we can still get that. It's just use your ears. And so the main things are make sure that your pitch is consistent. You'll have a range, basically, that your pitch, the lowest note and the high note, make sure that it goes back to the same spot every time. You don't want this kind of like dying mosquito type kind of sound, or like the cartoon ghost sound, so to speak. We don't want that. That's not what we're going for. We'll talk about some other things that'll help you with your sound, but that would be one of them. To make sure you get solid contact with your pick and no extra or wasted movement unless we want it. So, and one more word about the pick. We're not striking the guitar. That's not what the pick does. We're not swinging at it. You are simply generating velocity out of the string. That's what the pick's job is to do. So you have to be in control of how hard you dig, how deep you dig into the string, if at all. The angle of the pick against the string. They're just things to experiment to give you different sounds. There isn't going to be like a right or wrong. Like for instance, if I'm playing more country, my pick's pretty flat, and I'm using my fingers quite a bit. So, and to get those sounds, it's just, so the overall idea then is just use your ears. So if you have questions on how to use your ears, please post a comment. And obviously this is just kind of like a broad overview video for you. But I will continue to do videos on getting a good sound out of the guitar. Okay, so just practice notes and listen to them, and try to get a good sound with your hands. Hands first. No amount of gear that you have will make up from not getting a good sound out of the instrument itself. Okay? Again, have fun and play a lot. Listen.